Raised by wolves with canine DNA in his blood, having trained more than 24,000 pets, helping you and your fur babies thrive. Live in studio with Will Bangura, answering your pet behavior and training questions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host and favorite pet behavior expert, Will Bangura.
Would you like to go on? Walking?
Y'all ready for this?
Good day, dog lovers. Hey, it's Will Bangura, certified canine behaviorist. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Dog Training. Today, we need to talk about something that breaks my heart every single year. Around this time, it's getting very close to being the 4th of July. We're about a month out for the 4th of July here in 2026. And more specifically, it's what happens to so many of our dogs when those fireworks start going off. Listen, if you've got a dog who panics during fireworks, who hides under the bed, who trembles, who drools, who tries to claw their way through a window or a door, who maybe even runs away every 4th of July, I want you to hear me when I say this. You're not alone. Your dog isn't broken. Your dog is also not being dramatic. And there's actually something that you can do about it. Let me start with something I want every pet parent to really understand, because once you get this, everything else makes sense. For a sound, sensitive dog, the 4th of July is not a celebration. It's an ambush. Think about it from your dog's perspective. They don't know what's coming. They don't know why. They don't know when it's going to stop. Every few seconds, the sky explodes. The whole house can vibrate. The ground shakes a little, and there's nowhere to go. There's no escape. It just keeps happening for hours. If you wanted to design a stimulus that would maximally overwhelm a dog's nervous system, you really couldn't do much better than fireworks. They're loud, they're sudden, they're unpredictable, and they come from everywhere at once. Every single one of those qualities on its own would set off the threat detection system in your dog's brain. Put all four together, hour after hour, and you've got a recipe for absolute panic. So when your dog is shaking on the bathroom floor, drooling, eyes wide, panting like they just ran a marathon, please understand that is not a dog being weak. That is a dog whose brain is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do under what registers as a life-threatening event. Your dog is not choosing to be afraid. Your dog is having an involuntary, full-body, fight, flight, freeze, panic response. And that response, by the way, is the same one a human has during a panic attack. Now, here's where it gets important, because once we understand what's actually happening, we can start to talk about what to do about it. I want to tell you the single most important thing that I'm going to say in this whole podcast. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Behavior change in a fearful, anxious, or phobic dog starts with emotional change. Everything else is downstream of that. The barking, the pacing, the trying to escape, the chewing through the door, those aren't really the problem. Those are the symptoms. Those are the exhaust pipe. The engine is the emotion underneath. Your dog feels terrified, and the body is doing what bodies do when they feel terrified. So if we want to change the behavior, We have to go to the source. We have to change how the dog feels. This is why obedience training, no matter how good, doesn't fix noise phobia. I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, Will, my dog knows sit, my dog knows down, my dog knows stay, but the second fireworks start, my dog disappears and a terrified animal takes its place. Yeah, of course, because you trained the behavior, but you didn't change the emotion. When the boom hits, the amygdala takes over. The thinking brain goes quiet. And that beautiful stay that you trained for 2 years is gone in a heartbeat. So how do we actually change the emotion? This is where we get into what I call the gold standard protocol for any sound-based phobia. It's called desensitization and counterconditioning, DS/CC for short. And these two methods done together can literally rewire how your dog feels about fireworks. Let me break this down in plain English. Desensitization is exposing the dog to the scary sound at a volume low enough that they notice, but they're not overwhelmed by it. We stay just below threshold. Threshold is the line where the thinking brain goes offline and the panic brain takes over. So we stay underneath that line. The dog can hear the sound. The dog is calm. The brain can still learn. Counterconditioning is pairing that sound with something the dog absolutely loves. And I'm not talking about a piece of kibble. I'm talking about high-value food like chicken, turkey, cheese, freeze-dried liver, something your dog would literally do backflips for. The sound used to predict danger, now, every time the sound happens, magical food appears. Over time, the prediction flips. The trigger that used to mean something terrible now means something wonderful. This is real, lasting, emotional change. We're not suppressing the fear. We're not making the dog tough it out. We're removing the fuel underneath the fire. And when the emotion changes, the behavior changes with it automatically. Now, let me walk you through what this actually looks like at home, because this is something that pet parents can absolutely do. First, you need some equipment. You need a high quality recording of fireworks sounds. And I mean high quality, with the full frequency range, including the low frequency rumble that follows the crack. A lot of what dogs respond to is that deep body vibrating low end. And a tiny phone speaker just can't reproduce it. I've got a free library of trigger sounds on my website that you can use for this, and I'll drop the link below. But you've got to use a real speaker too. A decent Bluetooth speaker, a sound bar, a home stereo. Surround sound is perfect, but something that can actually reproduce the bass. Then you need food, not kibble. High value, soft, smelly, irresistible food. Cut into tiny pieces. You want a lot of repetition. So small pieces let you do more reps without filling up your dog. A clicker helps, a marker, something that gives your dog a clear, consistent signal that says, yes, that's the moment. Here comes the food. If you don't have a clicker, a calm, neutral yes works too, but use the same word, the same tone every single time. Now, if you don't know what marker training is, if you don't know how to use markers, you can go ahead and find an article on my website at phoenixdogtraining.com, but the use of markers can be incredibly important. And finally, you need a quiet room where your dog is relaxed. No distractions, no other animals, no kids running through. Your dog needs to be in a state where they can actually take food and pay attention before we ever introduce a sound. Here's the core sequence. Burn this into your memory. Sound, mark, food. And when I say mark, I mean mark the fact that the sound means that your dog is getting food. See, with markers, whether it be a clicker, whether it be the word yes, we've spent some time conditioning and pairing that association. Click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, over and over. Or if we're using a verbal marker, yes, give a treat, yes, give a treat, yes, give a treat, until the dog understands that that click predicts high-value food reward, or the verbal marker, yes, predicts high-value food reward. If you pair those maybe 20, 30 times in a row for 3 days, usually they've got it. And that marker is important. They hear the fireworks sound, then they hear the click, then they get the food reward. So again, that core sequence, burn this into your memory. It's sound, mark, then food. That's it. The sound plays at a low volume. The instant your dog notices it, you click or you mark with yes. Within a second, you deliver the food. The sound stops, the food stops. Wait a few seconds in silence, then do it again. 8 to 15 repetitions per session. Short and frequent is way better than long and infrequent. What you're watching for is something I call the Pavlovian tell. After enough repetitions, your dog will hear the sound and immediately look at you with this happy, expectant expression like, hey, where's my food? That look is everything. That's the moment you know the emotional response is flipping. The sound is no longer scary. The sound now predicts good things. When you see that look consistently across multiple sessions with relaxed body language and clean food acceptance, well, that's when you can bump the volume up. But here's the rule that pet parents break all the time. Go slow. Go smaller increments than you think that you need. If your stereo has a volume number, go up by 1 or 2 units, not 5. Going too fast is the single most reliable way to wreck the work you just did. Going too slow rarely causes any problem. A realistic timeline for moderate fireworks fear is going to look something like this. The first couple of weeks, you're working at barely audible volume, building that core association. Weeks 3 and 4, you're nudging the volume up a little. By month 2, you're at indoor listening volume. By month 3 and beyond, you're getting closer to real world intensity. You're varying the recordings. You're playing sounds from different speakers in different rooms. This is where the real work is. There's no prize for finishing early. The prize is a dog who actually feels different about fireworks. Now, I want to give you a really important reality check. The recording is not the real thing. Real fireworks come with concussion, pressure changes, ground vibration, the smell of gunpowder, visual flash, and your own anxiety. Because you know what's coming. Even after months of desensitization work, your dog is going to respond more to the real event than to the recording. So the work matters, but management on the actual night of the 4th also matters, which brings me to the other track, because we're really working on 2 tracks at the same time here. Track 1 is the long game. That's the desensitization and counterconditioning. That changes how your dog feels. That's the work that year over year can transform a dog who used to panic into a dog who barely notices. Track 2 is the short game. That's getting through this 4th of July, regardless of how much training you've done. And every dog, every year, needs track too, because even a dog who's mostly recovered still benefits from a good night of plan. So let's talk about that plan. The number one thing that you need is a safe room, a sound buffered, predictable, comfortable refuge inside your home. Pick an interior room. Bathrooms are great. Closets, basement rooms, interior bedrooms. The more walls between your dog and the outside world, the better the sound dampening. Close the windows, pull the curtains, ideally blackout curtains so that your dog doesn't see the flash. Run sound masking, white noise machine, fans, calming music designed for dogs. Anything that creates a steady wash of background sound to soften the contrast between silence and explosion. Set up your dog's favorite bed. Throw the favorite blanket in there. Put a long-lasting chew or a stuffed Kong nearby. Have water in the room. Use soft, warm lamp lighting, not harsh overhead lights. And here's the key thing. Practice using this room before the 4th. Feed meals in there. Do calm enrichment in there. Make it a place that your dog already loves before the night that they really need it. Don't introduce a brand new space on the most stressful night of the year. That just stacks more stress on top of an already overwhelmed dog. Now, let's talk about medication, because this comes up in every conversation I have with pet parents about noise phobia, and there's a lot of confusion around it. But before I say a single word, I have to be very clear about something. I'm not a veterinarian. I'm a certified canine behaviorist, but I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not a veterinary behaviorist. I don't prescribe medication. I don't give veterinary medical advice, and I'm not going to give anybody advice on psychopharmacology. That's not my lane. That lane belongs to your veterinarian, and ideally, when we're talking about severe cases, to a board-certified veterinary behaviorist. So when I talk about medication in this podcast, I'm speaking generally from my perspective as a behaviorist about the role medication can play inside a behavior modification plan. Any specific decision about whether your dog should be on medication, what kind, what dose, what timing, all of that has to come from your veterinarian. I just want to be crystal clear about that before we go any further. Okay, here's what I will say. Medication, when it's appropriate, prescribed by a qualified veterinarian, is not a shortcut. It's not a cop-out. For a lot of dogs with true noise phobia, it's appropriate welfare care. For some dogs, it's the difference between suffering through the night and not. Here's the science behind why. A dog in maximum threat response cannot learn. The amygdala within the brain has hijacked everything. The thinking brain is offline. If we repeatedly expose a dog to overwhelming stimuli in that state year after year, we don't get habituation. We get sensitization. The panic gets worse over time. So when a veterinarian, particularly one who specializes in behavior, is considering medication for fireworks fear, what they're often weighing is whether they can lower a dog's baseline anxiety enough that the dog isn't being further traumatized by the event, and whether behavior modification can actually take hold. I'll also say this. The field of veterinary behavioral medicine has evolved a lot. The way veterinarians who specialize in behavior approach medication today looks very different than it did even a decade ago. So if your dog has serious noise phobia and you're trying to figure out the best path forward, my strong recommendation is to talk to a board-certified veterinary behaviorist. They've done extra years of specialty training, specifically in behavioral medicine, and they're the people best equipped to figure out what's right for your specific dog. A couple of practice points that I can speak to. because they're not about specific drugs. They're about general principles. First, plan ahead. Talk to your veterinarian weeks before the 4th of July, not the day before. There may be paperwork. There may be a test dose process on a quiet day to see how your dog responds. Don't wait until July 3rd. Second, whatever your veterinarian recommends, ask them when it needs to be given to be effective. Generally speaking, anti-anxiety medications work better when they're already on board before the fear response begins, not in the middle of it. But again, that's a conversation for your veterinarian, not mine. All right, moving on. Now, let me bust a few myths that pet parents hear all the time, because these myths actively make things worse. Myth number 1, you can't comfort your dog during fireworks because you'll reinforce the fear. This is one of the most damaging things still circulating in dog culture, and it's flat out wrong. Fear is an emotional state, not a behavior. You cannot reinforce an emotion with comfort the same way you reinforce a sit with a treat. The amygdala does not learn the same way that you learn with operant behaviors. Does not learn the same way the operant system learns. If your dog wants to lean against you, let them lean. If they want you to pet them, pet them. If they want to curl up under your legs, let them. The calming social input that you provide is exactly what mammals are wired to seek under threat. Comfort your dog. Do it freely. Let's talk about myth number 2. They just need more exposure. If we keep blasting fireworks, they'll get used to it. No, that's flooding. Repeated, unstructured exposure to a stimulus a dog finds overwhelming does not produce habituation. It produces sensitization. The dog gets worse, not better. This is actually how a lot of fireworks phobias get created in the first place. So please do not just try to make your dog power through it. Myth number 3, they'll grow out of it. The opposite. The opposite is what usually happens. Untreated noise phobia almost always worsens with age. Every unmanaged 4th of July adds another layer of conditioned fear on top of the last one. The dogs I see in my practice have usually had 8, 10, 12 4th of Julys of escalation before their pet parent finally reaches out. Early intervention is dramatically easier than late intervention. Myth number 4, they need to toughen up. This one really gets me. Your dog is not weak. Your dog has a healthy mammalian nervous system that is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do under a stimulus that ticks every single threat box. This is not a toughness issue. This is a neurology issue. And finally, myth number 5, a shock collar will fix the running away. Please, please don't do this. Adding electronic stimulation, prong collar pressure, any kind of aversive control, any type of correction, even scolding to a dog in panic does not stop the panic. What it does is layer additional, painful, unpleasant input on top of an already overwhelmed system. And the brain takes notes. Next year's fireworks predict everything they predicted before, plus pain. The aversive equipment doesn't fix the problem, it deepens it, and it damages your dog's trust in you and in the process. Force-free, evidence-based behavior modification is not the soft choice. It's the choice that actually works. All right, last thing. When should you bring in professional help? You should reach out if your dog has hurt themselves trying to escape. If they've crashed through a window, chewed through a door, run into traffic, you should reach out if they eliminate indoors during fireworks, even though they're house trained. If they go into a frozen, disassociated state and stop responding to you, if their panic extends for hours or days after the event, if the fear has started to generalize to other sounds like doors slamming or distant traffic, that didn't used to be a problem. If you've tried home protocols and you're seeing no real progress, if any of that sounds like your dog, please don't wait. Reach out. Find a qualified force-free behavior consultant or a veterinary behaviorist. A veterinary behaviorist, by the way, is a board-certified veterinary specialist who can diagnose anxiety disorders, prescribe behavioral medication, and coordinate the behavior modification protocol with real medical rigor. For severe cases, that's the gold standard. Look for real credentials like a certified canine behaviorist through International Canine Behaviorist or a certified behavior consultant through the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants or the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. Look for a diplomat of the American Academy of Veterinary Behaviorists, or the American College, I should say. If you're seeing a veterinary behaviorist, make sure they're board certified. Avoid anyone who talks about dominance, alpha, showing the dog who's boss. None of that applies to noise phobia. And anyone who's still using electronic collars or any tool that delivers an unpleasant consequence is not the person that you want working with a fearful, phobic dog. Now, I want to leave you with this. Your dog deserves better than a tradition that doesn't understand what's happening inside their nervous system. Your dog deserves better than another 4th of July spent shaking on the bathroom floor. And the good news, the really good news, is that this can change. The brain stays plastic throughout life. Older dogs can be desensitized. Severe phobias can soften. Real change is real. It's lasting. And it starts with one thing: understanding what's actually happening and then doing the patient, science-based work to change it. If you need help with this, that's what I do at Phoenix Dog Training. In-home throughout the greater Phoenix area, virtual consultations worldwide. The link to schedule a behavior consultation is down below. So is the link to the full written guide. Yes, there's a full written guide and article that I did on noise phobias in the 4th of July, which goes into a lot more in-depth discussion on every single thing that I talked about today. If this podcast helped you, please do me a favor. Please share it with somebody whose dog struggles with fireworks. There are way more of these dogs out there than people realize. And the more pet parents who understand what's really going on, the more dogs that we get to help. Thanks for listening to Dog Training Today. I'm Will Bangura. Until we talk next time, happy training. I'm out of here.